This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Welcome, great to be back after a week off last week. Well, not a week off. We just couldn't get together. Gus was all over the country, so great to be back here for Six Tackles with Gus. We've got an Origin decider. It's what everyone was hoping for. What does it take to win in Brisbane? We'll ask the man that did it with the Blues back in 1994. Turbo returns to the field after a long hiatus, but he's in a different position for Manly in a crucial game this week. Lots of Ask Gus questions and a preview of some important games. Welcome, Gus.
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
Very good. You good?
Yeah, going okay.
Oh,
Going okay.
Doesn't inspire great confidence. Well,
I haven't stopped to think about it.
oh, right.
You shocked me with the question. How am I going? I
Yes.
don't know. I'll give it some thought.
So you covered a bit of ground last week, didn't you? Melbourne, then off to Townsville. Did you fly straight to Townsville from Melbourne?
Yeah, straight to Townsville from Melbourne and
Right.
then back to Sydney
Yep.
for the Bulldogs game Friday night. And I actually had to go to the Gold Coast on Saturday to go and talk to a family and a young footballer. Then back and I was out of Penrith on Sunday.
Yep.
Sunday footy show Sunday, Penrith on Sunday, then 100% footy Monday night. Busy yesterday. And
You were busy yesterday.
here we are today.
Well, whoever's paying your mileage bill will need to take out an overdraft. Let's start with the good news. A bit of funny stuff. I know it was mentioned on Monday. So you're now getting selfies with Queensland fans. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, Peter Pasoldis did that. He took he showed me. He took with his phone. He took a picture of me.
He took a picture of you getting a picture.
Getting a picture. Yeah, he took a video of me getting a picture. So after the women's Origin in Townsville on Thursday night, our post-match panel was down there in the corner, and the fans come around to watch the production of the end of the game, and then it was Jonathan Thurston and Sam Thaiday, and strangely enough, some of the supporters there wanted a photo with me, so I went across and got some photos taken.
Did they get a photo with JT?
Oh yeah, thousands. He was there for hours after me.
Can't believe it. Oh, dear. Photos with Queensland fans, eh? Look, some sad news that dropped this morning. I know people associated with the Canterbury Club have probably been aware of it a bit longer. But Jeff Robinson, who was a great player, but very much a cult hero and a popular member of the Canterbury family, has passed away after a long battle with cancer at the age of 66. I think people of an older generation that listen to our podcast would remember him. He had the long hair and the beard. He looked like the wild man from Borneo, but and played in a similar manner. But it's been awful to see his deterioration over some time, and unfortunately he's passed away, Gus.
Yeah, extremely sad today. He's fought a very brave battle for a number of years with illness, and he was really one of a kind, Jeff Robinson, as a player. He was, they say he was a cult hero at Belmore. I saw that firsthand for myself. I had the very great pleasure of playing with Jeff Robinson for several years at the Bulldogs, and I also had the displeasure of playing against him a few times as well. He was such a fierce competitor. On the field, he was known as the Wild Man. That was his nickname, the Wild Man, Jeff Robinson. He had the big, long black hair and the big beard, and he used to push off the back fence with his charging runs. And I think there's some famous footage of him. Remember the Parramatta side used to have, Jack Gibson's team used to have the wall. They used to have these little runaround plays with the wall.
Yep.
And you'd have to work out who was going to get the ball, and there'd be players going each way and every way. Robbo just took it upon himself to knock the wall down one day. He didn't care if they had the ball or not.
It's a good way to approach it.
And they stopped putting the wall up after that because Robbo was massacring them. He was a fearless competitor, extremely tough. He was wild. He feared no one. But off the field, he was such a quiet and humble man. He was very, very simple in his friendships, and he was staunchly loyal to all his friends and family, and he'll never be forgotten. I can remember in those days at Belmore Oval, Belmore used to resonate with the sounds of Robbo, 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 every time he got the ball or every time he did something good, and he had a wicked sense of humour. He was a funny kid. He was quiet, but when he said something, it was invariably funny or it was invariably very meaningful, and it was wonderful to know him. And there are a lot of very sad people today with the Canterbury Club, and there were some in particular. Our major sponsor, Arthur Laundy, had become very, very close to him for over a number of years. Jeff Robinson was a Chester Hill junior. He played 139 games for the Canterbury Club. He played from 1977 through to 1984. He played in 3 grand finals. He won a premiership in 1980. He won a premiership in 1984. He then went to Halifax in 1985. He took a year off Australia, went to Halifax. I think Chris Anderson left the Bulldogs and went to coach Halifax at that time, captain coach Halifax in England. And Jeff Robinson went with him for a year, and they won a premiership across there. Then he came back in 86 and he played in the Bulldogs side that played in the grand final and lost to Parramatta at that time. But yeah, and I know Arthur in particular is extremely hurting today, and we send our very best wishes to him. But we've all lost a great man. The Canterbury Club's lost a great man, so has Rugby League, and he'll long be remembered. He'll never be forgotten, Jeff Robinson, and his contribution to the club.
He was married to his wife Janine at 18, I read today. Amazing. 7 kids, Layla, Hayden, Travis, Jade, Nadine, Simone and Joel, and grandchildren as well. We pass on our condolences, and we honour the life of Jeff Robinson. You've signed Satili Tupanua for 4 years, Gus. What a good signing.
Yeah, he's a quality player coming from a quality club. He obviously, one of the things about him I loved in sort of the interview style. I've always loved him as a footballer, but he didn't want to leave the Roosters, which is always a really good sign. Extremely loyal, and he loved his club, but salary caps and different things at different times means that sometimes players need to move on. And he liked what the Bulldogs were doing, so it's a great signing for us. Obviously, he's playing with the Roosters for the rest of the season, so we'll respect that and probably have more to say at the end of the year. But it's a great pickup for us, and it certainly complements the players we have in our roster at the moment and the ones we've recruited over the last 12 months. And the club will be excited about welcoming him in November.
Round 18 coming up. Canterbury are 5th. 8 wins for the year. 20 points. Haven't made the final since 2016. Not there yet, especially in the landscape of the premiership at the moment. But what a meteoric turnaround, or momentous turnaround. Maybe that's a more appropriate word.
It certainly has been a massive turnaround. Last year was a very, very difficult season. Well, the last 8 or 9 years has been very difficult for the club, but last year in particular because, in trying to rebuild the club over the last couple of years, there was a few things we had to step backwards with, and that left us very vulnerable. And at the start of this year, I said, you said, what were you looking for? And I said, well, I was really just looking to improve the perception of our club, the perception of our football team, the competitiveness of our football team, and to cut down the big losses that we were sort of having in recent years, to give our fans hope, and that every time they went to the football, they'd see a competitive performance. And for the most part, we've been able to do that this season. Even in their losses, there's been great credit, and they've had some great wins as well. There's still a long way to go, where we want to be as a club. What I'm particularly pleased with is the development of the Pathways program, the performance of our junior rep teams and our lower grades. They're all extremely competitive. They've all been well up in the premiership ladder. Not that means a lot. The idea is to produce NRL class players, but while ever you're performing well at those levels, players get in the habit of training hard, training well, and winning games, and they come through together. We've got some terrific young kids coming through the system, and I can only be extremely proud of the way the team has performed this year. As I've said many times, there are some great clubs in this league and there are some great systems and great coaches, but our coaching, high performance and medical, and our administration is second to none at the moment. There's been a massive turnaround in the club. It's a wonderful place to work, great group of people. The important part for me is getting the right people in the right jobs and helping them to do their job or allowing them to do their job, and they're certainly all doing that. And the club's moving along on all levels. Next year we'll start the construction of a $50 million Centre of Excellence at Belmore, so that Belmore is our home for eternity. It'll be a wonderful training facility and academy for our junior reps and girls now. We've got an NRLW team. We've got a very extensive women's program, so the club's going ahead in leaps and bounds. Like I say, we're a long way short of where we want to be, but couldn't be prouder of the way the team's performing at the moment, and they're doing extremely well.
Yes. 8 wins, 7 losses, and as I look at the ladder here, I've learnt that you are the only team in the comp that is unbeaten at home this year.
Yeah, well, touch wood.
I don't want to jinx you.
Yeah, we got a pretty tough draw between now and the end of the season. We play pretty much every team that's in contention for the top 8, and we've got to go to Townsville, we've got to go to Bundaberg, we've got to go to Brisbane, we've got to go to New Zealand. So we've got a lot of travel as well. So it's going to be a great last couple of months just from an experience perspective and to test everything the players have been working on over the last couple of months. So hopefully we can get a few back from injury and maintaining our competitive nature right through all that.
Well, if you make it, you're certainly going to earn it. Gus Turbo's back this week. I know you've spoken about it on Monday on 100% Footy, and I'll get some more elaborate thoughts from you in a moment. But for the purpose of yes, no, if he shoots the lights out for Manly this weekend, does he enter Blues calculations? Oh, really?
Well, I would assume that there'll be no changes to the New South Wales side, given the way that they perform, but we've still got to get everyone through uninjured and unsuspended after this weekend. If by some chance, and let's hope there isn't, there are injuries and players are unavailable for whatever reason, if you were looking for a qualified player to step back into the Origin, and with players like him, I would not worry too much about not playing much recently. They're Origin class players, representative class players. I see Kalen Ponga's been named this week.
Yes, he has.
And could well be an option for Queensland as well. I wouldn't hesitate to pick him either. We'll talk about that later. But, Turbo's someone I would always trust. If he was fit and well and standing on 2 legs and you needed someone to represent the Blues, it'd be none better.
Okay. Maybe from Gus. Manly would be praying that he doesn't go into the Origin.
As I prefaced that, I don't expect any changes to the New South Wales side.
But if they need to fill a hole.
But if something happened and they were looking for someone that could do the job, there's no doubt he could do the job.
Well, I might ask you now, actually. Anthony Seibold was non-committal about whether he'll be in the centres going forward. The other thing he said, which really caught my attention, was he thinks he'd be a good 5'8". Isn't that's an exciting prospect?
Yeah, well, he's got the ability to play anywhere. And we look at some of the great fullbacks over the years who have done that, particularly Darren Longico, I think stands out as the player that made the transition from fullback to 5'8". And I've never really heard Wayne Bennett talk about why he did that. I think it was more to protect Darren from bringing the ball back and being targeted by opposition teams with their kick and chase. And Darren, acclimatised to the 5'8" role and ended up being one of the world's best 5'8s. He was the world's best fullback at the time, ended up being one of the world's best 5'8s. We spoke about this on 100% Footy the other night, and Manly's decision to bring Turbo back, perhaps in the centres, and then they're talking long time whether or not he would play in the halves. Quite sure he's got the ability to do both. I was asked whether or not I would do that. I see him as one of the premier fullbacks in rugby league history. I think that's his position. Now, whether or not playing fullback and the amount of kilometres that those positions demand in the modern game is contributing to his injury run, I don't know. Medical people would know more than me whether or not the demands and the amount of kilometres and high-speed efforts they've got to have at fullback, heightens the incidence of hamstring injuries that he's having. I can't see how it'll be any different playing any other position, to be honest, so far as injury is concerned. If he can get his body right and he stays on the field, then I would certainly be glad he's not playing fullback as an opposition, someone with an opposition team. I'd be glad he's not playing fullback. And then, it comes to the salary cap money too. He's obviously on very big money and he's earned that because he's a premier fullback, which is a key position in the game. I don't know that, centres particularly earn as much money as fullbacks. Well, I know they don't. Yeah. So it's another burden as well. But I
suppose they've got to, at the very least, get him on the field, though.
Well, that's the first part. The first part's to get him on the field and get him playing regularly. And if they do, then Manly are a far greater force. There's no risk about that. I love Tom Trbojevic. I think he's an outstanding footballer. It's just sad that he's missed so much football through injury.
Come on, Turbo. Get yourself going, my mate. Love Turbo. Now, we called that game on Sunday, and I made the comment during the commentary when Cowboys Penrith, out at Penrith. You could watch North Queensland play some weeks and think they'll win the comp. you can watch them play the next week and think they're dead set going to run last. So my question to you is, with 5 wins in their last 6 games and 6 games of their last 8 at home, can the Cowboys finish in the top 4?
They can, from a mathematical perspective. I don't anticipate the top 4 will change. I think that Storm, Panther, Shark and Rooster will be the top 4, and I think they'll win enough games to maintain that. I think they're the 4 teams that probably would have genuine aspirations in winning the premiership, and to do that they would be eyeing a top 4 space as imperative. Once we get through the origin period and we set sail throughout July and August in the run to September, those clubs are experienced at qualifying for finals. I think they'll get the job done and finish top 4. But if one of them were to hit a few hurdles or to spill their lollies, then the Cowboys with their draw are one of those teams in the next clump, and there's a clump of teams there that are looking for those bottom 4 spots in the top 8. They've all pretty much won the same number of games. It could well come down to for and against, and the toughness of the draws there. But Cowboys have a great draw in respect that they get a number of games at Townsville, which means they've done very well up to this point. Now, you say they won 5 of their last 6, so 6 weeks ago it must have been looking pretty sick for them.
Oh, they were going awful.
Yeah, so it's, and as you say, they've had some rough days as well, but they've also had some good days. And they probably signified their potential a few weeks back when an under-strength team beat the Roosters down here in Sydney. I think we called that game too down at Allianz, and they came from behind to do it that day. They never looked like winning, but really hung in there and got a good victory. And there's no doubt that they've got the attacking ability to tear apart any defence in the competition.
That's 2 wins they've had. Roosters at Roosters home, going Allianz, Penrith at Penrith, without their origin players, and walked away with victories.
Yeah, now, granted, Penrith didn't have their origin players other than Asio either, but the Roosters game was right against the odds, and it was a game they weren't expected to win. I remember interviewing Drinkwater before the game that day for Channel 9. I went down to talk to him. I said, how does it feel to be playing a game where absolutely no one gives you a chance? And he just broke into a smile. He just broke into a smile. He said, I love that. I love that. And he went out and played accordingly. They ran towards the challenge. They weren't intimidated by it. They were there. No one was giving them a chance. And they came out victors on the day. But it was just his initial reaction. There was no thought, or there didn't look to be any intimidation or doubt with it. He just broke into a smile. And I thought, good on you. They were there to play. He could feel it. And they just hung in all game and beat the Roosters. And he's a dangerous player when things go right for him, Drinkwater, isn't he? Yeah, none more dangerous. I mean, he's the amount of times that he's contributing to line breaks and tries, and he's a busy player. He's got a few errors in him, but if you keep firing as many bullets as he's done, you're going to miss the target occasionally. But he is a dangerous player, no risk in the world.
So Cowboys Manly this week, that is a massive game up in Townsville. You mentioned Canterbury make the trip. They have the bye then, round 19. Canterbury in Townsville, round 20. Sharks in Townsville, round 21. They play the West Tigers at Leichhardt. They host Brisbane. They host Canberra. They have another bye. Then they host Melbourne. Then a return match-up against the Bulldogs. So it's actually, whilst they don't have to travel a lot, it's not an easy run.
No, they're playing some quality sides, but they are getting them at home. And, how many wins are you going to need to qualify for the top 8? If you've got a poor for and against, you probably need one more win than all the others.
They're +2.
Yeah, I think it's very delicately poised with a lot of those sides. And there will be upsets. I mean, you can sit there and do your ladder predictor, and you'll kind of think who you think might win. But we've seen so many upsets as well, so it's very, very interesting the last part of the competition. I just think the top 4 sides. Yeah. Will get it done. They're very professional. They're the top sides in the competition. The one with the big watch on them is the Broncos, obviously, and they've got the Panthers this weekend. But the Broncos, I think, if you look at their draw, they've got a very, very good draw. Once they get through the Panthers, I think they've got a very good run leading into the finals, and they'll get their rep players back and a few back from injury. And I think Kevin Walters, he's always had this quiet calmness about him that whilst most people are panicking, they're now outside the 8 at the moment on for and against. So, but he's kind of been calm knowing that the run to the finals isn't that bad.
You've taken my next question.
What's that?
The Broncos could miss the 8. They're in.
I don't think they will. The more I look at the ladder, I mean, and that's allowing for getting players back, obviously, and running back into some form. But they were last year's grand finalists on their day. They're an extremely impressive football team, athletically brilliant. Adam Reynolds. Now, there's been some conjecture about Adam Reynolds, whether or not he was out for the season and struggling to get back from injury. But I saw somewhere on social media Adam Reynolds saying that that's not the case. He will be back at the right time, and he'll be ready for the run to the finals, so that will be a bonus for them.
So
they've got
that's on the eve of the finals, or Reynolds before the finals?
Yeah, I think you get back at about round 20, 21 or something like that.
So Penrith at home this week, Dragons at home, Newcastle away, Bulldogs at home, Titans down the freeway at the Gold Coast, Cowboys in Townsville, Para at home, Dolphins up the road, Melbourne at home.
Yeah, so
they should.
Well, on their best form, you would imagine
the bulk of them.
They'll start favouring most of those games, the bulk of those games. So
but maybe not the top four. I mean, if they make the 8, they're going to struggle to make the 4.
I don't think they can make the 4. I think the top 4 sides are set. I think, and deservedly so. I think they're the 4 best sides in the competition.
You've said a few times, actually, this year that this could be the year where a team comes from outside the 4. With the calibre of teams that finish outside the 4 this year, it's looking like...
With the closeness of it. So, I know from Bulldogs' perspective, we've played all top 4 sides this year.
Yeah.
And we've played Sharks and Roosters twice. So we've played Panthers once, Storm once, Sharks twice and Roosters twice. Now, we've beaten Sharks and Roosters, all right? And I think Melbourne, they beat us 16-14 in Melbourne, and Penrith beat us 16-10 at Penrith, which were 2 outstanding results, for our club in beaten sides, and could have easily won both games. So I don't know that the top 4 are as dominant as what we've seen in previous years, which means that someone could get there, like a Cowboys or a Brisbane could easily get to September and have a good month and win 4 in a row. Turbo might get on a run. Well, there are other sides that are capable of it, but particularly the ones that at the start of the year were one of the favoured teams. They were the favoured ones. They're the sort of sides that could have a good month in September. It's going to happen at some stage. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. You have to make the 4. We only do that because history shows that the winners come from the top 4 sides. Well, generally by round 24, you've worked out who the top sides are, and we've usually had 1 or 2 favourites, and there's been very, very few surprises in the last 20 years of our premiership winners. And, I think Melbourne Storm and Panthers are still my 2 picks, but I can see the Roosters winning the competition. I really can. I think the Sharks are a level below those. I think the Roosters are the biggest dangers to Storm and Panthers, mainly because I think the Storm and Panthers have come off a little bit from what they've been in previous years. And they have to. They've lost players, and that's just how it is. And the Roosters have just got this sense of timing about it, not just sense of timing in the competition and getting towards the back end of the year, but their roster is outstanding, and they are losing a number of these players at the end of the season, retiring, going to other
JWH's last hurrah.
Going to other teams, and I think there could well be this motivational advantage that they've got that, this is the last ride, and, we'll all win it for each other and go from there. So the Roosters, to me, are building confidently at the moment, and if they've got all hands on deck, it's a very, very strong side. And Panthers have been up for a long time, so are the Melbourne Storm. They're very, very good teams. I still favour Panthers to win the comp, but Roosters are a major danger.
Cleary 2 weeks away, told us at the weekend.
Yeah, I reckon he could probably play now, but there's no need for him to play at the moment. They can just give it as long as they like and make sure he's 1,000,000% right. I'm sure if it was a grand final this week, Nathan Cleary would be playing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last question. The drive down Caxton Street should be reinstated. Yeah, baby.
Absolutely.
Bring it back.
Absolutely.
Get the police. The police can do whatever they want to do, but let the bus get down Caxton Street.
What are they scared of?
Well, occupational health and safety.
Why?
Workers' comp. Cans flying. Spit. Feces.
You just need stabilisers on the side of the bus because it does tend to tip over.
So you drove down there in 94, yeah?
We went I know we went down the first 2 years, 92 and 93. I don't think we went down there in 94. Can't remember,
Did you,
to be honest.
What, was it banned, or did you say you wouldn't?
I think it was banned by them.
Because it was that long?
We'd have to get police escort to the games.
Yeah.
Right? There was always motorbikes, police escort to the games. And my first experience was in 92 as the coach, and we went down Caxton Street. And I loved it. I thought it was absolutely outstanding.
That'd be awesome. Bring it back. Bring it back. I know we're litigious and we're all worried about things. I reckon the Blues would relish it.
Well, what happens is that the legend grows and grows, and then you do get idiots that will step over the mark and do something stupid. But it was just people talked about it. All the players that I'd played with and coached over the years that had played Origin talked about it and what a thrill it was. And I got to experience it myself as a coach, which was wonderful. And we actually embraced it, and I think it's good for the supporters.
So 92,
but I can't remember. I think it must have been 94. They took us around the other way. Anyway,
did any of your blokes in 92 or 93 get up and give it back to the Queenslanders out the window?
Nah.
No? It would be so good. I've spoken to some of those old Blues legends like from the 80s, and I think what adds to the Caxton Street aura was the old Lang Park. You'd have to come out of the sheds and run through the bar, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And they'd throw beer cans at you running out on the field.
The old Lang Park, yeah. The dressing rooms were sort of out the back of the grandstand underneath, and you'd have to walk out through a public area and then out through the crowd to get on.
Now that's a bit hairy.
Well, everyone just saw that as natural. It's just normal. Fair game when you go to Queen. I think what got people nervous was the night that the referee sent Wally Lewis to the sin bin up there.
So it was raining 4X.
And it was raining. It was raining cans of beer, and they talked about the mentality of the Queenslanders. They threw the full cans. They didn't throw the empty ones. They still had beer in them, and so they showered the field with all these beer cans. And they thought, well, gee whiz, if there was a riot here one day, what would happen? So they started to get a little bit more security conscious and police, and it's just the modern world, isn't it? But
you could have barricades on Caxton Street and drive the bus down.
It doesn't stop them throwing stuff. But I maybe the bus company didn't want to do it. Maybe there was too many dents in the side of the bus.
That's probably true.
I do remember the bus shaking. I do remember the banging on the side because there was no police in the first couple of times. It was just banging.
No police.
And it was just banging. It was great.
Well, the reason I wanted to bring that up is because it's freakish, actually, because your team in 94 was the first team to do it. 30 years later, New South Wales are trying to do it in a couple of Wednesdays' time. And if they do it, it'll be the exact same path that your team took in 94. Lose in Sydney, win at the MCG in the first game ever, and then win at Suncorp.
Now, I don't like talking Origin until Origin comes around. All right?
We've already had 2 games. We're in the middle of the series.
You all talk about Origin way too early, but there was a podcast earlier this year where in our yes-no things, you said that the winner of Origin 1 will win the series. And
I asked the question.
I said no. The winner of Origin 2 in Melbourne will win the series. And I'm now going to stand by that, because New South Wales have got there and did so emphatically. I think they've got what it takes to go to Brisbane and win the decider. Having said that, are we into the Origin talk already?
Let's go, baby.
All right, well...
So, state of origin.
Yeah, so... You've heard me say this a number of times, that Origin deciders in Queensland are a different beast. We can go back through the history of Origin and see where New South Wales have been dominant in Game 2 to square the series, but gone to Queensland in Game 3 and spilled their lollies.
Happened 2 years ago.
Yeah, that happens regularly. They're very, very good. And the Origin, the atmosphere at the Origin decider in Brisbane is unlike anything any player will ever experience. And if you haven't experienced it before, it's going to intimidate you, and it's going to make life very, very difficult for you. Paul Gallen on the 100% footy the other night said he played in a couple and got belted in both of them. And he said, but the thing was the noise. You could not hear yourselves out on the field, because it's a great stadium and they're right on top of you. But the noise meant there was no communication. You had to... that was one of the things. It's such an intense environment that it's unlike anything else they will have ever experienced. And the crowd lifts Queensland. It intimidates the New South Wales players. It makes playing the game extremely difficult. But I do think New South Wales can overcome this. I do think that they can win it.
So if you're preparing a team, and think back to when you did it, I love the parallel between this year and back then. Bearing in mind everything you've said there, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. How do you use that, the intimidatory nature of what they're about to confront in your preparation to bring your team together?
Yeah, there are certain things that are beyond your control, and we can't control the crowd, we can't control the atmosphere, we can't control the effect it has on referees, the effect that it has on the media. We can't control any of those types of things. We can't control the motivational edge that it gives to the Queensland players if in fact they build on that crowd and that expectation and their devotion to their fans. And they do. It's a big thing for them. Origin is so important to the Queenslanders. It's not that it's less than important for New South Wales, but it is so important to the Queenslanders and young Queenslanders growing up. And when they wear that jersey, they follow the legacy that has been left before them by many great sides and many, many great players. And these Queenslanders will be at their best. They will be absolutely embarrassed by what happened in Game 2. I think I said to you that also in history there's been a suggestion that when Queensland win the first game of the series and they know they've got the decider in Queensland for Game 3, they can be a little bit soft in Game 2, not quite on the pace of the game. Well, that was obvious. That was obvious in Game 2, and that culminated with the fact that New South Wales actually played really well. So that was the gap in the game at half time. But one of the thoughts I tried to give teams was that whilst that crowd starts out as being an asset to them and a perceived negative for us, at some stage we need to put that pressure back on them. At some stage the crowd and the expectation has got to start to play on their minds that maybe we can't do this, or maybe this isn't going to plan, or maybe they're asking us to do something of which we're not capable. We have to put the doubt back into them. There was an old saying, keep the home crowd quiet. Well, you're certainly keeping the home crowd quiet if you've got them at their end of the field and you're not giving them penalties and you're not, dropping the ball and doing things that the crowd can cheer about and beat down on your confidence. The first thing I would say is that regardless of where you played anyway, and I always had this thought as a coach, I was not a home ground coach. I never thought of games home and away. I wanted the feeling to be same wherever we play, because I would say that we could play anyone, anywhere, anytime. That had to be our attitude. I got that from Costa Zoo. I actually remember Costa Zoo, the great fighter. Yeah, I remember, and I knew Costa back in the day, and I used to see him regularly, and we were sitting somewhere one day, might have been at a charity luncheon or something, and he was sitting there, and I said, when's your next fight? And he used to speak in very broken English in those days. I said, when's your next fight? He said, 3 months. 3 months. I said, who are you fighting? And he said, so-and-so, and I didn't know who the bloke was. And I said, well tied? He said, yeah. I said, and I said, in your training, when will you be ready? He said, today. I said, what? He said, today. I'm ready to fight any day.
I'll fight you now, Gus, if you want.
he said, I am ready to fight title every day.
Wow.
Every day.
How about that?
He said, anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Oh.
And it became a motto for me with our football teams, anyone, anywhere, anytime. I thought it was a great attitude to have, and it's kind of like, I won't train to get right to play. I will be right today. I will always be ready to play. And anyone, anywhere, anytime, they tap me on the shoulder, I'll be ready to play. So I tried to instill that in teams that I coached, in club teams that I coached, and there was never a game we believed we couldn't win. There had to be a scenario and there had to be a way that we could win. And so that sort of messaging came through, particularly in instances like this, where you were obviously going to be underdogs, or you were playing fearsome opposition, where a lot of the elements favoured them. You had to paint a picture, you had to paint a scenario that you could have confidence in and watch the game unfold in that manner, which only builds on your confidence as you go along. So if you're painting a scenario, if we do this, they'll have to do that. If we do this, they'll have to do that. And as that starts to transform in the game, your confidence grows and say, this is what we talked about. It's actually happening now. So you paint a picture of how this game will unfold and how the crowd will start off at fever pitch, but then the crowd itself will start to get nervous. You've often seen home crowds when the home team's not going well.
What about Sunday?
Yeah, they start to feel it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And they start to feel it as well. So my first thought was, wherever we're playing home or away, that the game will be decided between the sidelines and the try lines. That's the only place the game will be played. That no one else's opinion matters. All right. So media, family, friends, supporters, fans, critics, whatever, it doesn't really matter, because what will decide the game is between here, where we played, what city we're playing in. It doesn't matter. It will be decided between these sidelines and the try lines the way every football game is ever decided. By the best team, by the players who play for each other and stick at their plan and stick to it and believe in it right till the end. So, and they're the basics of it. So, first of all, I used to say to them, unless this crowd's allowed to jump the fence and join in, they can't help them. All right, so we've got to believe that this game will be decided between the sidelines and the try lines. So that is just noise. Whether it's cheering for us or cheering against us is absolutely irrelevant. If it affects the refereeing, if it affects the officiating, if it affects the way the opposition plays, well, we can't control that either. But we can only control what our reaction and attitude will be when these things happen during the course of the game. So that was the first thing, that we weren't going to look or play victim. We weren't going to be victims to things that we thought were bad luck or things that we thought were built in opposition to us, that weren't in our favour. So we'd kind of eliminate all those things. And then we come down to a game that we could do without having to communicate with each regularly, because it was muscle memory into us, and our game plan was simple, and we would try to keep it as simple as possible. And what we would do is try to make sure we eliminated all the things that would get the crowd excited and played to their advantage. We had to eliminate all the things that would help the crowd come into the game. And that was my basic philosophy and those things. And it takes a very, very good team to do it. When we did it in 94, we lost game one here in Sydney, and that was the miracle try to Mark Coyne. We had that game won.
Yep.
They not only scored the Mark Coyne miracle try in the last minute of the game, they scored 2 tries in the last 5 minutes.
No, did they?
To win the game.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, they snatched it from nowhere. They scored 2 in 5 minutes to win the game. And it was, and it's great that we went. I'm glad we went through it, because it was part of us building as a team. But that Origin team in '94, we'd won in '92 and '93. It was a team that had been built over 3 years. So this was kind of like the next challenge. This was the next level of what we had to do, to be the first New South Wales team to lose game one and win a series, and to be the first New South Wales team that won a decider in Queensland. And in fact, when we walked off the field after Mark Coyne scored that try to beat us in that game, we walked into the dressing room, it was fairly quiet, they were very sombre, they knew they'd sort of blown it, and and it made the series very, very difficult. But I'd said before the series to Jeff Carr, our manager, I said, whoever wins in Melbourne will win this series. Melbourne's going to be the key to this, assuming that we'd probably win in Sydney. But now we had the... And I remember I said to them, the first words that came out of my mouth were, we'll be the first team to win a decider in Queensland. That's what we'll do. And it was kind of like already jumped over game two. We'll go to Melbourne and win. I'm confident of that. But we'll go to Brisbane and we'll win game three. And it was kind of, we started it there in that attitude that that's what we're going to do. We went to Melbourne and we blotted them out. We beat them 14-0. And then we took that same mentality into the Queensland game, and we were able to keep the crowd quiet. It was Mal Meninga's last game, I remember. So it was a fever pitch, and and we had a great side. We had a great side, and I think it would take a great side to do this. In 2005, Ricky Stewart's team did it, but he had a great side. I think Andrew Johns came back through in that.
He was
game
two.
It was
memorable game two, and Anthony Minicello was man of the match in game three. Do you know, interestingly, in '94 that decided. I had a look at it earlier. Do you know that your team kicked 3 field goals?
Yeah.
A former New South Wales coach said to me last week that it's a different style of game, which a lot of people say. He also said that sometimes the referee can get swept up in the parochial nature of the Suncorp crowd. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. It's only human nature. It really is only human nature.
Do you think that's one of the key elements why New South Wales' success there has been sparing?
No, not always. Sometimes they've been extremely dominant. I mean, they don't beat you by 50 because they get a few calls go their way. That's not it. But I think that's only human nature. I think if you look throughout history and everything like that, there is there is a natural bias towards the home crowd. It's just how it is. That's just how life is in our sport, in all sports.
It's like in a club game when the crowd starts whipping up a boo. They boo the ref, and suddenly you get the penalty for holding down or something.
You get the home crowd's baying for everything that it can get,
Yeah.
and back in the old days, my old coach Warren Ryan, he used to say referees. He said they're only human. He said if I put my hand up this way and they boo, and I put my hand up that way and they cheer, he said, what do you think I'm going to do?
Pavlov's dog.
And the officials need to be strong, and our officials will be strong, but. You've got to put that out of your mind. You've got to put out of your mind. You've got to put it, because if you perceive if you become a victim to that, then if a decision does go against you, or a call goes against you, or luck goes against you, that can eat away. And you go, here we go again. You need to fight against that. You need to walk towards that. And it's you can't be a victim. You can't be making excuses before the game, because you will use them during the game.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So there are no excuses. We take about all the things that over which we have no control. We have no control over the crowd. We have no control over the media. We have no control over the weather. We have no control over the bounce of the ball. We have no control over the officiating. We have no control about Lady Luck. We have no control over the football gods. They will do what they want to do. But at the end of the day, when they engrave the winner's name on the shield, they'll just write New South Wales or Queensland. They won't write down how it happened, why it happened, who was lucky, who was unlucky, what have you. All they will write down is who won the series. No one else will care who had injuries, who had this. It doesn't matter. These are one of those games where all that matters is who won. Not how you won, not what happened during the game. No one remembers who had bad luck. They don't care.
Yeah.
Right? They might whinge about it for a week, but no one's going to care. No one's going to care if you're injured. No one's going to care if you're tired. No one's care that you didn't know what was going to happen. No one cares that you couldn't hear a call. No one's going to care about that outside the ground when they're looking at it. Right? So if I'm hurt and I can't chase, no one cares. They just know that you didn't chase, or you didn't get there. So you'd best get there. We can't use these excuses. We can't play victim to this. And that's the mentality of the champion players that play at this level. They will get up when they're hurt. They will run when they're tired. They will... they'll be fearless in their physical presence in the game, and you've got to keep doing it over and over, because Queensland will. They will. Because they will. They won't dare not do that in front of their people, in front of their crowd. Now, we've seen New South Wales teams and New South Wales players that have been overwhelmed like that. They've been overwhelmed with the environment there in Queensland. And right from the time you get there, you can feel it. One of the tips I used to give was that one of the things I learned early in the Origin thing was that when you went there to play in Brisbane, you needed to have your preparation complete here in Sydney. You couldn't go there and then use another training session or a captain's run, and I've tried it. I've tried there, gone and have a couple of training sessions, have one training session, just have a captain's run. Then I realised I can't rely on any of those in the preparation.
I heard you talk about that. The lights are on one end of the ground. On the ground.
You get no favours from anywhere. No favours from anywhere.
Wasn't there one where
it wouldn't matter where you went, you get no favours anywhere.
Didn't they turn up once and there was highlights of Queensland scoring tries on the scoreboard or something? Or
one of the funny stories we had, and I'd sort of gone there. I got to the point where I wouldn't even take them out on the field. They go out and have a kick around, have a walk around, and that sort of thing. And I think one year they ran the new Suncorp Stadium had just opened, all the renovations and everything like that. And they actually had, while we were training on supposedly a closed session, a fogs function up in the grandstand. Former Origin great. So every Queenslander that ever played for Queensland was sitting in the grandstand watching us train. And I remember saying to us, look, what I'll do is I'll kick the ball to you for kickoff. We'll just practice our kickoff set coming out of kickoff. I said, but when you get to tackle 4, I just want you to put a little chip kick in over the top. I said, what? I said, just put a little chip kick in over the top on tackle 4. I said, well, just do it. So we did 3 sets. We had this little chip kick over the top. And I said, look, I said, now when we get in the game, when we get to tackle 4, I want you to kick it as far as you can. Queensland were waiting for the chip kick.
Were they?
Yeah, they were. They were waiting for the chip kick on tackle 4. So
front page of the Courier Mail. Blue secret kicking tactic.
Yeah, and it was
a false function. How funny.
So what I did was I tried to help them with those last moments of preparation. So Origin was one of the only nights where, like normally in those days, everyone went outside to warm up. You either went onto the field or there was a paddock out the back. Well, you couldn't do it in Origin. You had to warm up in the dressing room. And the dressing rooms weren't that big back then and they weren't designed for it. So you had to manufacture the warm-ups you see regularly before the games, with bump pads and hats and sprints and ups and downs and all these sorts of things that they do. They do far too much of it, in my opinion. You would have to warm up in the dressing room to get yourself ready to play and to make sure you're reducing the risk of injury and all that sorts of thing. So I would take them today before the game, not to have a captain's run on the field, but to practice what we were going to do in the dressing room, because those final moments are important. Mm-hmm. So I wanted them that when we did it the next night for real, it felt comfortable. They knew exactly what we were going to be doing. Rather than the trainer said, we'll try 2 of these, we'll try 3 of these, we'll go over there, and we haven't got enough room to do that. So we would actually go to the ground with the staff, plan what the pre-match was going to look like, when they were going to get rubbed, when they were going to get strapped, when they were going to get their jerseys, when they were going to come for their last meeting with me. And I tried to do the last meeting at the hotel. I didn't like talking to them in the dressing room before the game. I hate players sitting down around a whiteboard in the dressing room before a game. I think that's their time. They've got to have time to move and think or sit and be quiet and think. I don't like to interfere with that part of the game. I think the coach's job is at half-time on game day. I don't agree with all that pre-match stuff, but a lot of them do it. But I wanted the later part of the preparation in the dressing room so we'd go there and rehearse that. We'd rehearse the dressing room and what it was going to feel like and look like before we ran out to play, and then we'd go out and the fellas would have a kick around and that. So
chip and chase.
But there'd be cleaners, there'd be people walking up in the sweeping seats up in the thing
with a microphone, like he's in the CIA.
Tape recorder, and then phones out. But anyway, it was
very funny.
Yeah, and
it's all part of it.
But it was all part of your preparation to make it familiar for them. I actually think it was a help to New South Wales when they renovated Suncorp Stadium because the old Lang Park was extremely intimidating. Extremely intimidating.
I never went to the old Lang Park.
Didn't you?
No.
No, it was extremely intimidating. But when they put the new grandstands in, it was a little less intimidating. And probably we'd got used to it too.
And they don't serve full-strength beer.
Yeah, I in my Origin experiences, I was lucky. We had 4 deciders. We had 3 in a draw. So we had 3 wins and a draw in the deciders that I played in. So we handled them pretty well.
Do you expect the same referee to be appointed to Game 3?
Probably. They like to stick with all 3. Who was the referee? I can't
Ashley
remember.
Klein.
Yeah, I can't remember. I try to ignore referees for big games.
Do you expect... Now, we know Queensland aren't going to win or lose because of Xavier Coates, so you'd imagine it would be Cobbo onto the wing, but you've mentioned Ponga.
I think it's a loss.
Huh? It's a loss, but it's not a halfback.
I don't think Queensland's solution is in the selection room.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think it would actually be counterproductive for them to make too many changes leading into this decider.
They've been so dominant for 2 years.
Yeah, and I think there is more value in the redemption story and putting that game behind you than there is in blaming people for it seemingly by replacing them and bringing others in. And to be honest, they haven't got a lot of options when you really think about it. I think you're only guessing and assuming that person would have done any differently in the Melbourne game. You've got to make the change because you think it will honestly improve us. I don't think you should do it because you're punishing someone who performed badly in that game. The whole team performed badly. And it's a team game. Once some elements of your defence are brittle, it makes everything else so much harder. They just weren't on the pace of the game. They weren't there mentally. Simple as that. It was a big win in Sydney. They did it with 12 men. They've got the luxury of the game in Queensland. I did not expect Queensland to perform well in Game 2, and they didn't. I didn't expect the score to be 34-0 at half-time. No one expected that. But New South Wales were stunningly good. Mitchell Moses and Jerome Luai were outstanding. I thought Dylan Edwards was brilliant at the back. I thought the forwards really did their job. And when they did that, well, Latrell Mitchells and Stephen Crichtons and these fellas are going to hurt you, and they did. It was a stunning 40 minutes of football, absolutely stunning. Queensland, I don't think the answers are in the selection room. I really don't. I think the answers are in an honest appraisal of what happened for Game 2, flushing that for your system, and say, all right, well, this is a new game. The winner gets their name engraved on the trophy. We don't have to draw pictures. We just have to to get our name engraved on that trophy, and this is how we're going to go about it. And Queensland are very, very good in these environments. Number one, they're right where they want to be. Queenslanders love being written off. Number two, they're at home in Brisbane in front of their crowd. Right, the whole preparation, they're going to be written off, which they will, they love, and this will get back to the true value of Origin football and why they play Origin the way they do and who they play for. And the crowd will support them. The crowd will get there and play its part. Now, what New South Wales needs to do is not to be a victim to that, but then to use that in their favour if they can. At some stage of the game where even the Queenslanders can feel the crowd's nervous and the crowd's starting to doubt, that will then start to play on their mind, and the demons from game 2 will start to come back into them. But it's up to New South Wales to put that in ahead. As I said the other night, like game 3, you can't win it in the first 20 minutes, but you can lose it. You can lose it in the first 20 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what New South Wales, that's what happens to New South Wales a lot in these sort of games. So it's a decider. Our record in them is not good. It's a decider in Brisbane. Our record in that respect is very, very poor. But the emphatic nature of the Game 2 victory should give New South Wales a lot of confidence. Hopefully those are the experienced players in the side and the coach are able to alert them to the requirements of winning this game and what's going to do, and their preparation goes well, and they get there ready to play and keep the crowd quiet through the early parts of the game by competing well and holding onto the ball and not doing things that the Queenslanders can cheer about and excite their team. First scorer in this game is going to be extremely important. That's going to be a moment where mentality things start to happen to players. But I think the redemption part of the Queensland thing should be the story, not the changes to their team. And there'll be injuries. There's already an injury already. I don't know, and I don't care what they're going to do selection-wise. I'm more interested to see how they present themselves, and particularly those that played in Game 2, how they can improve for Game 3. It certainly wasn't their best performance, was it? It was awful.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, teams to pick this week. Cannot wait.
Yeah, we've got to get through. New South Wales have got to get all their players through as well.
Of course.
Someone will get hurt this weekend. Not that I wish that on anyone, but
it is the pinnacle of in many respects, it's the pinnacle of the game at the moment. I'm conscious of international football, etc. But a deciding Origin game in Suncorp is as big as it gets.
Well, it should be as big as it gets. Yeah. This is I think. From so far as a performer, a player, or a coach, or a team, it doesn't get any bigger. Particularly for New South Wales, it doesn't get any bigger than this. The challenge, I can't think of any other challenges in the game in my history of the game where a decider in Brisbane against Queensland is not the biggest challenge you will ever face in your playing or coaching career. I just think it is, and you need to run towards that challenge. You can't be intimidated by it or be making excuses in your own mind or fearing things in your own mind. You know there's going to be obstacles. You know there's going to be challenges. You know it will be difficult, but you need to run towards that. And during the game, if there is a bad call, if there is a bad luck, if a ball does bounce off the upright, if they do fluke a try, if there is a wicked bounce that goes their way, if you do get a player sent to the sin bin, if a player gets injured early on and you're down to, whatever thunderbolts the football gods are going to throw on you that day that could potentially turn you off or have you looking for excuses, you need to prepare for those and know that what your reaction's going to be. And I'd say to players, it's no good getting nervous and worrying about your first touch, which is only natural. If you're going to play if you're playing in a golf competition, what are you thinking about? What is the one thought in your mind as you're driving towards the course?
I'm playing tomorrow.
No, but what's your one thought? What's going through your mind? That first tee shot.
I hope I don't have 20 points.
No, that first tee shot. You're worried about that first tee shot. That first tee shot. If I can just get a good one off the first tee, I'll be right.
About that. Worry about everything else.
Yeah, everyone else does. And it shouldn't affect the rest of your day, even if the first one's a bad one. So I used to say to players, don't get nervous and worry about your first touch because it's going to come and go. Your first run, your first tackle, your first catch, it's going to come and go very, very quickly. You've still got 78 minutes to play. Right? You can't let the rest of your game be affected by the first thing that you do. What I want you to go to bed thinking about is the last thing that you do. because this
Lifting
game
the
might
trophy.
this game might be decided on the last play of the game. It might be your last kick chase, your last effort, your last tackle, your last run. You know, your last support. There could be something that needs to be done in the dying moments when you're injured, when you're tired, when you're fatigued, when the game's on the line, when the crowd's screaming and the score's in the balance. Think about that moment, and you going to the game to make the difference. It could be up to you. It could be up to any one of you to actually come up with that winning play. It might be saving a try, it might be scoring a try, it might be catching a high ball, it might be running back into the in goal to knock a ball down. It could be anything. It could be chasing a bloke who's taken an intercept. It could be anything. But when that moment comes in the dying stages of the game, when you're tired and you're fatigued and you're injured and your shoulder's aching and everything else is like that and the scoreboard and, gee whiz, if we lose, what's going to happen? Can I still go to the game and get it done? Can I still run to the game?
Gus, do you know what would make this better? Game 3? The last word. And you've just written it.
Right.
You've just written it.
Yeah.
All you have to do is do it.
Yeah. I'd forget my lines.
Why don't you just do it again?
I'm getting old,
The
baby.
whole rugby league public wants you to do it.
No. That's past. We've got other things now that we do. Our production's
We've
great.
been begging you for years.
Our production's great.
Yeah, we'll make it greater. Ask Gus. Will you do the last word? Maybe is the answer. Jesse wants to know what advice you'd give to Nicho Hynes about his current form and criticism he's receiving.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the current form, I don't understand a lot of the criticism. He's doing a lot of things really well. He's a big moment player, and every now and then the big moments are not going his way, you know, and that's what people are seeing. But he's doing a lot of good things as well. I think, you know, like it's going to happen, particularly for your major playmakers that are out in the open and making, particularly your goal kickers and people, you know, like there's that famous quote from Michael Jordan, I failed 9,000 times, you know, like the number of times he was given the game-winning shot or the last play of the game and he missed, you know, but you just keep persevering and keep believing, you know.
His team's not playing all that great around him either, are they?
No, well,
They're not going all that good, Cronulla.
Well, they're going okay.
Well, they're going okay, but you know they were 9-1, they're now 10-4.
Yeah, well, they're in the top, but that's going to happen.
Yeah.
We've gone into Origin time, you know, and you can't be brilliant forever. And you know what's going to happen is how they come out of this little period and get towards the back end. You know, your form through June, you know, the cold months, you know, is sometimes a relative to what's going to happen in a couple of months' time when things start to warm up and you get to the finals. They've got finals mentality. They've been to the finals the last couple of years. Admittedly, they've spilled their lollies and lost their finals, but that should be experienced into the future. And Nicho Hynes needs to be looking, you need to lean towards the positive. You know, like you need to be leaning towards what's going good and just trust that your moment will come. You know, it's like you can go out and putt really well all day and not sink a putt. You know, it's just sometimes they fall in and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it bounces your way, sometimes it doesn't. There was a lot of criticism because he missed that field goal against the Bulldogs in Golden Point the other night. His teammate was in his way.
They were in the wrong spot.
They were in the wrong spot. They got too close. So the setup wasn't right. And when you actually look at it from behind him, his teammate was in his way, thinking that he was guarding him. So he actually had to try and kick it, you know.
Around his mate.
He had to try and shape it around his mate, and he just overcooked it a little bit, which happens under pressure. You know, like it's... You know, those things can happen.
So your advice would be not to worry about it too much?
No, of course not. Because I would go back and look at the number of times where he did get it right. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's going to happen. He's a very, very good player, and he's still learning. He's still a baby in that respect, in a playmaker respect. What is he, 26 years of age or something like that?
No, around there. Maybe a little older. But
yeah, well, so, man, all our top playmakers are over 30 years of age.
Yep.
And all of them had failures. All of them had misses. All of them had bad days, right? Nicho's a favoured, he's a very, very popular young man, and he's a big moment player. There are moments in the games where these big moment players where everything stops to watch. It's either a conversion kick or it's the last play of the game or it's a field goal attempt, and everyone stands around and says, well, now the result hangs in your hands. But the result is now in everyone. Whatever's happened up until now means nothing. Can you execute that play? Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But the fact they've thrown you the ball is because you're good.
Yeah.
And because you're great at what you do and because we trust you to do it. Whether it comes off or not, we're with you. All right? So we know it's not going to come off all the time. But the week before, he had a kick from the sideline with the wind blowing out there at Shark Park to level the score against the Dolphins and send it to Golden Point. And he kicked brilliantly all night. And people say, he panicked. No, he didn't. It just didn't go through this time. It's as simple as that. The field goal didn't happen this time. It's as simple as that. He needs to believe in himself and people need to believe in him. It's as simple as that. The time will come. And then it'll come to where you'll feel like he can never miss. And that's where he'll get to in his career.
What should I be thinking on the first tee tomorrow?
Eh?
What should I be thinking on the first tee tomorrow?
Nothing, just go through your routine and your process. And then when it goes, don't chase it, find it again, and then you've got another shot. What are you worrying about? What are you worrying about?
Well, I was going really good, and then the last 3 weeks I'd never played before.
I remember back when I was a kid and I was learning to play golf and all that, so I read a lot of golf books. And I did it for football coaching and that sort of thing. And one of the things we talked about with attitude control, and it was the great South African player, Gary Player, who won a number of... And he talked about it early in his career. He said he lined up in a tournament and he got to the first tee and there was wind blowing and there was a lake on the left and there was out of bounds on the right. And all of a sudden he started to panic and he started to feel nervous. He said, but the fairway was 80 metres wide. He said, I could sit there all day on the practice range.
Oh, yeah.
And hit the ball down the middle of this fairway and never miss. Like, not even think about it. Never miss.
Yeah.
He said, there's a lake over there and there's out of bounds over there. And he said, and I'm thinking, what is the thing, why am I now intimidated by this shot? Why am I now intimidated by doing something that I do 1,000 times a day and do it so willingly? And he admitted to himself, it wasn't the lake, it wasn't the out of bounds, it wasn't the inability to do it. What was intimidating was the score he had to write down at the end of the hole.
Yes.
He was intimidated by the score he had to write, as to whether he made a par, a birdie, a bogey, a double bogey, or whatever it was. So it was actually the score that was intimidating him, because there's no scorecard on the driving range. There's no scorecard when you're practicing. There's no scorecard that matters when the result's not important. So it's the score that intimidated him. It was the score that changed his thinking and got him nervous. And that's the same with footballers. What I'm saying is, what I used to say, don't look at the scoreboard, don't look at the clock. Cowards look at the scoreboard, cowards look at the clock. We keep playing until someone tells us to stop. And no player is more important or less important than the one before. We can't be intimidated by the scoreboard or the clock. We can't be intimidated by the result. We can't be worrying about what happens if we lose. What happens, what will happen to me if I don't get this right. What you have to do is trust the process. That's the muscle memory. That's what you train for. That's why we spend the hours doing what we're doing. We're very adept at doing it. We're confident in doing what we're doing. Some days it will go wrong and some days it won't. And it's the same thing if you hit a bad shot in golf. They say, what's the hardest shot in golf? It's the shot after you hit a shank, because all of a sudden you've got that on your mind,
Well, after that rev up, Gus, there'll be no shanks tomorrow.
You don't know shanks. You don't let the scoreboard intimidate your process.
Forget the score. Hit the ball.
And wherever your ball lands, that's the next challenge. So if it's in the long grass, if it's in the bunker, if it's on the middle of the fairway, that's your next challenge. If it's into the wind, with the wind, left to right, right to left,
I shall report back.
You take on the challenge. You'll...
If I win the comp, there'll be a special episode of Six Tackles on Friday. Do you know, Gus, there's 23 days until the start of the Olympics. 23!
Yeah. When are you leaving?
It was 3 weeks Monday.
Okay. You packed?
No, not yet.
Passport?
I got that. I'm glad I checked. Mine didn't have 6 months left on it. I had to get a new one.
Spending money?
What's that? I'll be working.
But you're going to go to some European racing while you're at it?
Very excited. No, won't be doing that. Well, I got plenty of racing. I got 9 days of swimming. But I'm getting excited. It was good. We did the trials in Brisbane, got us all ready to rock. The most infamous race in Olympic history was arguably the 100 men sprint for men at the Seoul Olympics of 1988. My question to you is, why was it infamous? Who won the race? And who holds the gold medal? You might need a little bit more thinking music than normal. Back with more. Seoul, 1988. Men's 100-metre final.
Yeah, I've got an admission to make.
Yeah.
All right. Because I lived in the 80s, and the 80s were a very different time. How old were you in the 80s?
I was born in the 80s.
Well, yeah,
in the early 80s.
You don't remember life in the 80s, all right? And we lived pretty hard, and I was dedicated to my football.
But you were drunk.
Remember those shows?
You coached the premiership winning team in 1988.
I remember that part. You remember those shows they used to have 20-1 greatest things that happened, etc.
Yeah.
And we used to, and they'd have 20-1 the greatest things that happened in the 80s. And I'd sit there at home on the lounge and I'd go, really? That happened? That happened?
What? We put a man on the moon?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
You remember this?
I remember grand finals and I remember some of the other things. But a lot of history I don't remember.
Because you were too busy putting together VHS tapes in 1988.
1988, the Olympics would have been the furthest thing from my mind. The furthest thing from my mind.
You're a sports nut. Come on. The 100-metre final of 88.
The 100-metre final of 88. Look, honestly...
It involves drugs.
I don't know. When were the swimsuits? When was Thorpe and the swimsuits?
It's the 2000s.
Was it?
In 1988...
I don't remember the 80s.
Well, it was infamous because it was 5 of the first 6 over the line tested positive to drugs at some stage in their career.
Right.
Can you remember who won? He was Canadian.
That was a big part of the 80s.
Yeah, it did. Not the sort of drugs that they were taking. He was a Canadian that won first across the post. Ben Johnson.
I thought it was swimming.
No.
Oh, if you said
on
100
the track.
Oh, yeah, Ben Johnson won it. Yeah. Ben Johnson won it. I remember Carl Lewis. It was actually Carl.
Well, so the answer is who holds the gold medal now?
I think Carl Lewis.
Carl Lewis.
Yeah, but I remember Carl Lewis. I remember the quote because Ben Johnson streeted them.
Broke the world record.
Yeah, and they asked Carl Lewis, what did you think of that? He said, no human being runs away from me like that. He knew.
He was full of gear.
Yeah, he said, no human being runs away from me like that.
Yeah, he bolted him.
He virtually was saying it after the race. That's inhuman, what he just did. No human being runs away from me like that. There was another great quote, Carl Lewis, that I used with one of my football teams at one time. Might have been Carl Lewis won the gold medal, I think, 4 years later, did he? Or 3 years later?
Well, he won the long jump in 4 straight Olympics.
Yeah.
And he won the 184, 88.
But he won a 100 metre. He won a big, might have been a World Cup. He won a 100 metre World Cup race, and it looked like he jumped last. It looked like he'd missed the kick, and then he came through them and won. And in the press conference after the contest, and this is about attitude control and not letting the result affect your performance, they all said he missed the start, and they said, "How did you feel when you missed the start?" He said, "I didn't miss the start." They said, "Oh, you were behind them." He said, "No, they just started great." He said, "I started good. They started great."
Wow.
He said, "I could not let that affect my thinking."
You haven't got long to think about it over the 100 either, have you?
He was locked in his lane and his performance. He said there was no panic because he said, "I began well. They just began great." and it's a great attitude to have. And I used to say, sometimes you get out in the football field and your opposition just starts great. They just start great, or they have a bit of luck, or they get a couple of penalties, they'll score a try, and it's 6-0, and now the crowd's in your head. Trust it. Run your race, run your lane, run your race. Let's run our race. And I remember that quote distinctly. He said, "I didn't miss the start. They just started great."
Won 9 Olympic gold medals, Carl Lewis.
Yeah.
I think pound for pound he's the best track and field athlete ever.
Yeah, brilliant athlete.
So there you are. Yes, Ben Johnson.
He said, Ben Johnson won the race, and he said, "No human being runs away from me like that."
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't specify. Well, did I specify the track? I don't know. Anyway, we just found out.
Well,
you're
calling the swimming, so I might have just thought.
Yes.
Well, I thought it was a swimming question.
All right, Thursday night footy, Combank Stadium, live and free from 7:30 tomorrow. Parramatta versus South. They're out of the running for the finals, but it'll be an interesting game nonetheless. Latrell, obviously, are you convinced he'll play fullback? Because young Jai Gray's he's in 18 on the bench. I was wondering whether they'd put him at fullback and Latrell at centre.
Nothing in football surprises me. I think he'll still play fullback. Mm-hmm. I think they've got Whiten and Reynolds.
Whiten and Walker.
Whiten and Walker in the halves.
They've got Milne and Kenner in the centres.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that. I think their best chance of winning this game is with Latrell at fullback. Whether Latrell can put the pending Origin decider out of his brain and play the game that we think he's capable is another thing. I kind of fancy Parramatta at home. I think their performances have been okay. Rabbitohs are improving. Obviously, they've made a little run. I'm going to go with the home side, not for any particular reason. I just think the Eels are probably due for a win.
6 o'clock Friday, Cronulla hosting the Titans. This is interesting, actually. Daniel Atkinson's on the wing. Katoa's out. And AJ Brimson comes back into the Gold Coast team, but he replaces Jaden Campbell, who's been such a good player. He's got another injury. So a few other changes there. Fodawaker, of course, comes back from Queensland duty.
Yeah, Titans, their last performance, they won by 60, didn't they? 66-6.
Yeah.
And they beat a team that came out and beat the Broncos last week. So the form looks pretty good, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I'm going to tip Shark to bounce back.
Mm-hmm. All right, Reece Walsh, Pat Carrigan, Payne Haas all return after being rested from Origin 2 and Brisbane host Penrith in Friday night footy at Suncorp Stadium. Dean Mariner goes to centre. Corey Oates comes onto the wing and Katoni Staggs has been left out because of personal issues. For Penrith, Dylan Edwards, Brian To'o, Jerome Luai and Liam Martin are all back.
Yeah, well, they're big ins, aren't they? Important one for Bronco. The Panthers are still well placed on the ladder, but did have a loss at home last week, and that won't sit well with them, bringing those players back. I'm going to tip Panther narrowly away from home.
It's a mini Origin, isn't it? Bulldog Warrior. Is this a core?
Yep, Saturday, 3 o'clock.
All right. Connor Tracy missed last week. Good to see him back. Everyone else sweet?
Hope so. Yeah, hope so.
All right. Yes, 5:30. Leichhardt Oval, West Tigers, Melbourne. Oh, geez, the poor Tigers. 2 in a row, and then they have that little drop-off last week.
Yeah, well, they ran into a good side. Roosters can do that to sides.
They can, yeah.
You know, I've said quite often, Roosters have got this ability to accumulate points better than any other team in the competition, and they just have their day, and they had a day the other, even in the wet the other night. I mean, it was drizzling rain, and they still amassed 40 points and did it really comfortably. I'm going to go with Storm.
Harry Grant's not playing again, by the way. And
he's got a sternum injury.
Does he?
I think he's in doubt for Origin. Or I think it'll be a risk to play him.
Wow.
Ooh. Those things don't come good overnight.
Sternum. I thought it was head injury stuff.
Those things don't come good overnight. Ooh. That's my mail. I might be wrong.
You very rarely are.
I might be wrong, but my mail is it's a sternum issue.
Wow. No,
I might be wrong.
Grant. No,
I might
Harry
get bad
Grant's
mail.
a big one.
I might get bad mail.
Is that what? Oh, that's why you mentioned Carlin Ponga. That's why you mentioned Carlin Ponga.
Might get bad mail.
So do you reckon if he doesn't play, Ponga will play?
Might get bad mail. I don't know.
All right. This is one of the best games of the year, this. North Queensland at home to Manly with Turbo back, obviously. Holmes, Talangi, Dearden, Cotter, Nane, Robson, all in. I'll tell you who's going good is that Sam McIntyre for North Queensland.
Yeah, doing his job.
So Turbo's in at centre, which has overshadowed the return of Tolu Kola for Manly as well. He's going to go in at fullback. Yep. And obviously the other rep stars are back. What a cracking game. Two teams fighting for a place inside the 8. They're largely full strength.
All these games for all these teams when they play each other are worth 4 points. It's not only the 2 points you get, it's the 2 points your opponent doesn't get in the race to the finals. There's a number of teams still in contention and results over the next. It's going to be a very interesting last 2 months of the season.
Can't wait to watch that game Saturday night.
Yeah, I think I will favour the home team. They just seem to be in good spirits at the moment, and those players coming back from. And I'm sure that those players that missed last week after losing the Origin game, I was actually on the flight to Townsville from Melbourne last Thursday, and those Cowboys boys were getting on the plane, and they were quite despondent about what had gone on the night before, and they didn't get the chance to play on the weekend, and I think they'll be looking to bounce back and put their best foot forward to get selected for Game 3.
What time was that flight?
It was early. What happened? I was up early because my new chairman at the Bulldogs wanted to have a mini board meeting out at the airport at 7 a.m. So my flight wasn't until 11:30.
Oh,
yeah. Which is when I came downstairs at 6 o'clock. We were staying in the same hotel as the New South Wales side.
Did you see the same two as I did? The same two players as I did?
No, I was only worried about our play.
I saw a couple having a really good time.
Stephen Crichton was coming back from the gym, from the swimming pool. He'd already been up at 6 a.m. to do his rehab, and he was coming back.
That's amazing.
With his towel and a couple of bottles of water, and he was fresh as a daisy and ready to go.
Yeah.
That hotel used to be called Hilton on the Park. It's the Pullman on the Park now.
It's lovely.
And that's where New South Wales teams have stayed traditionally. Back in what year was it? Must have been 1984. Must have been the game we won 14-0.
94.
94. And we got back to the hotel and we used to have a drink in those days. And we had
This
a
is
drink.
you and Ricky, is it?
And this is Ricky,
Yeah.
yeah. And Ricky refused to let me go to bed.
Yeah.
Because Ricky was a night owl and wanted to stay up all night. And I'm sitting there drinking with Ricky Stewart and Jeff Carr, and all of a sudden the bistro's open for breakfast at 5 a.m. in the morning, so we decided we'd go back in and have breakfast. And we're in having breakfast.
With Tooheys News.
We're in drinking the sponsor's product. And
Over bacon and eggs.
we used to be the Tooheys Blues in those days. And we're having bacon and eggs. And
Scooters.
And I said to Ricky, after we were sitting there for an hour, I'd had more than enough to drink. And the reason I was happy to do it was that we were playing Canberra that Saturday at Penrith. So I was happy to keep Ricky out all night. But we're sitting there, and we're not far from the entrance to the bistro. And I said, I'm going to bed. He said, you're not going to bed. I said, I'm going to bed. And he said, you're not going to bed. I said, yes, I am. I said, I'll be out of this chair and through that door before you can get out. I said, you're the slowest halfback in the competition. I said, you won't catch me. He said, if you move, he said, I'll hit you. And I said, you won't catch me. So I waited till he was looking the other way and I took off. He's come from behind and got me, tackled me in the foyer. I've hit the tiles and I broke my kneecap.
Yeah.
But we did beat Canberra on the weekend.
Yeah, I know you said that. That's funny. Let's just say, I'm not surprised that a couple of the players that didn't back up on the weekend didn't play.
They probably knew they weren't backing.
They do. That's
They
true.
probably knew they weren't
They
backing
did.
it.
I walked down with my golf club at 6:30. One of them said to me, "What have you been playing? You play golf this week?" I said, "I'm going out now." He said, "What are you talking about?" Okay, 2:00 Sunday. So Anzac Day, the Roosters beat the Dragons by 60.
Yeah, they're playing both games. Anzac Day was the Roosters. Was it the Dragons? Must have been the Dragons' home game for Allianz this year.
It must have been, yes.
For Anzac Day. So Roosters get another game at Allianz against the Dragons.
So Marnie's out for a month.
Yep. They're
And
struggling.
Lomax is in for the Dragons.
Yeah, they're struggling a little bit. I don't know who they've named out there, I suppose.
They got Michael Jennings and Satili Tupanura as their centres.
Satili was really good in the centres the other night. They're very versatile. I'll still favour Rooster to beat Dragon.
All right, and Canberra versus Newcastle with Kalen back in the team. They get Leo Thompson back as well. Sad, he's been very, very good. Phoenix Crosland out because of a head knock. And Kyle Weeks at fullback, Rapin to the wing, and young Adam Cook's playing halfback, as was the case for Canberra last week.
Yeah, so now earlier in the week I kind of fancied Raiders at home, but not knowing that Kalen would be brought into the side or that Leo Thompson was back, gee whiz, I think that nearly pushes it in the Knights' favour. Won't be much in this at all. I'm going to favour the Knight narrowly, so I'm going to go with Eel at home to Rabbit, Shark at home to Titan, Panther to beat the Bronco in Brisbane. I'm going to go with Storm to beat Tiger at Leichhardt, Cowboy to beat Manly up there in Townsville, Rooster to beat Dragon at Allianz, and the Knight to overcome the trip to Canberra and beat the Raider at home.
It's peak cold weather in Canberra now.
Yeah.
We've reached the
Well,
official freezing time of year
You'd
in
much
Canberra.
be rather going down there in daylight hours than
Very true.
in the evening. So
All right.
covered a bit of ground.
What are you
today,
doing this weekend?
I don't know. I got a lot of missed calls. There's drama. Something's happened.
All right, better let you go.
All right.
All right, that's Six Tackles. Great to be back, and we'll be back next Wednesday.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.